Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You've reached the No Name Cinema Society, the film review show that dares to dig just a little bit deeper. And this is our Sound Off, our freeform segment, episode 72.4. We're going to talk about pretty much everything we want related to the film industry, something for this set of episodes or related to our finale episodes, anything we damn well please. And that's sort of the fun of the Sound Off. Hi, everybody. My name is Jonathan Betzler. I'm one of your hosts here this evening. I'm in Astoria, New York, which is a neighborhood in Queens, for those of you who don't know. Which is obviously one of the boroughs of New York City. And this is probably my last time here for a while. I've got a couple of fun co-hosts that are excited to join me for tonight's Sound Off. First, ladies and gentlemen, he is a veteran from our 1947 in review this past year. The Jeopardy champ, Jim Carroll's here.
Woohoo!
Welcome, Jim. We got a lot of sounding off to do. Also with us, ladies and gentlemen, now he's a veteran of the show, not as tenured as Jim, but he's been with us for a long time in his fourth year in the society. Matthew Polis is here.
Hello.
All right. So, guys, it's the three of us for tonight's Sound Off. It's one of the more popular Sound Offs. We got recastings coming up, as I'm about to explain, because this is our schedule for which has been our 72nd series of episodes. It started last Thursday, December 28th, with the review of our current feature, Ferrari. Last Tuesday, January 2nd, was our indie spotlight of the 2018 film Ben is Back. This past Thursday, January 4th, was our classic movie discussion that Matt was a part of. We did Bicycle Thieves from Vittorio De Sica. And tonight, of course, the Sound Off. And there you see just some of the things we're going to talk about tonight. So then the question now becomes, who is drinking with me for tonight's Sound Off? It's not a lot of talking they need to do. So I wonder if they'll be doing some drinking. I got Voodoo Ranger IPA. What do you guys got?
I have a Coca-Cola, little mini Coke.
Better than water, so that's a little something. At least you can cheers it. Matty P, you got anything? I know you're not feeling super great.
Yeah, since I'm sick, I have some throat tea.
Maybe a little bit of medicine in there, alcoholic medicine. Either way, here's the drinking slide. Things that you guys sent in that you drink to when we do them on the show. Anytime I say all-time contrivance, contrived, verisimilitude, anytime Matt makes fun of me, or anytime Jim mentions his children. Those of you that are drinking with us, cheers to you guys out there in the listening audience. Which brings us to one of your favorite segments, although these guys don't really like it. It's time for This Day in History. On this day, January 9th in history, on this day, it's a big day in history. In 1861 on this day was the famous Battle of Fort Sumter, which Jim will be able to tell you a little bit about as the Jeopardy champion. A Union merchant ship called...
Oh, I don't know the name of the Union merchant ship.
It's called Star on the West is fired upon as it tried to deliver materials to Fort Sumter in South Carolina, and thus officially kicking off the Civil War. Since it was a surprise attack and the Confederates outnumbered the Union troops 500 to 80, the Union quickly surrendered the fort with no casualties on either side, but it was the first strike across the bow. On this day, January 9th, in one of the years we studied, 1959, so 65 years ago, the TV Western Rawhide premiered on this day in our year of 1959. The show is notable for introducing the world to Clint Eastwood. The show aired until 1965, and Eastwood stayed with the show until the end before kicking off his film career in Italy with Sergio Leone shortly thereafter. And on this day, in another year we studied, 1988, so 36 years ago today in January 9th, it was an Olympic year in 1988. And on this day, 36 years ago, American figure skater Brian Boitano would win the gold medal in the men's figure skating championships, narrowly beating his Canadian rival. Let's see if Jim remembers the Canadian rival's name.
No, I'm not too up men's.
Brian Orser in the famous Battle of the Bryans. And birthdays today, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Kerry Condon's 41st birthday today, born in 1983. Kelly O'Malley and I both said that she should have won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar last year for her work in the Banshees of Inisherin. All right, guys, it's time to move on to a societal announcement. Got a couple of fun announcements. Usually the second sound off of each year, we have an announcement. And usually the last sound off of each year, we have a different announcement. Except this year, our second sound off is our final announcement of the year. So we're going to do both announcements. Usually on the second sound off, we announce our lineups for our finale episodes. So starting with the year in review that we're going to study, because Jim obviously was a part of our 1947 in review. Every time we do a different classic year in review, it's a year that you voted on. We do a fan poll. And so this is our 9th year on the show. And so here are the previous 8 years we've studied. In 2015, we did a 1990, which was 25 years difference. In 2016, we went back 50 years to 1966. In 2017, we went back 75 years to 1942. 2018, we went back 30 years to 1988. In 2019, we went back 60 years to 1959. In 2020, we went back 50 years again with Matt Polis to do 1970. 2021, Kelly and Max went back 35 years with me to do 1986. And of course, Jim Deather and I went back 75 years again last year, 2022, to do 1947. And so here are the options that you had to choose from for this year. And so we had a special vlog announcement in which we announced not only the year we were going to study, but also my co-hosts for that event. Take a look. Before I reveal the year in review that we're going to be studying, let me introduce my co-hosts for the year in review. They do know what year they're going to study, but you don't. So first, ladies and gentlemen, he was on our Oscar preview last year. This year's doing our year in review. Ladies and gentlemen, Angelo Santos is going to be doing the year in review this year. How do you feel, Angelo?
I feel good. I love the movies from... Oh, wait. Do we know what the year is? No, sorry.
I'm about to reveal it, so don't spoil it.
I won't. But I love that year, and I'm very excited.
So Angelo and I are about the same age, so so his relationship to this year is different, is more in line with mine. But we do have a younger society member that's going to be doing the year in review with us. Just like Angelo, it is her first ever year in review because they're both sort of newish to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Melanie Risch-Ho will be doing this year's year in review with us. Excited? Overwhelmed? What do you think?
A little bit overwhelmed, a little bit daunted, but I'm excited.
I feel like those things are the same thing, but I appreciate you guys. We're in different cities. I'm in Los Angeles. These guys are in New York. So usually we have a big get together for our first ever vlog announcement. But we're doing it virtually this year because of our geographical differences. And the time has come for me to reveal to you what you voted on that is going to be the year that we're going to study this year. I'm going to put it up on the screen behind me. Is it going to be 75 years ago, 60 years ago, 50 years ago, or 25 years ago? Ladies and gentlemen, which is going to be? It's going to be 1998. Look at that. Going back 25 years. It is the second time in society history that we're going back 25 years. The newbies on the show get to do their first year in review, going back 25 years for only the second time. This is the first time that we've done that since our first year when we did 1990, and that was a full 8 years ago. And as you saw, the two newest members will be doing the classic year in review for this for their first time each. And that leads me to the other two shows. We've got the top 10 of 2023 and the Oscar preview. And so our lineup for the top 10 of 2023 are not only me, but also Kelly O'Malley and Patrick Taylor. Kelly will be doing her first top 10 ever, and Patrick is doing his second. He also did it in 2021 with one Matt Polis. And they had a lot of agreement, actually, when they did that top 10. We'll see if Kelly and Patrick follow suit. And doing the Oscar preview, where we go through this year's categories once they're announced, and so for those co-hosts will be tonight's co-host. Matty P and Jim will be reteaming. It'll be Matt's first ever Oscar preview, and Jim's third time he did it. He did it in 2018 and also again in 2021. So
they all just blend together.
Yeah, this is and then we go through, I think 9 in the main categories: cinematography, adapted screenplay, original screenplay, acting categories, director and picture. And we say what we think will win. We do prediction, what we think should win in each category based on the nominees, and then what we think should have been nominated that was not. That's usually a pretty popular show. Here's the schedule for the lineup for this year's finale episodes. They always air the week before the Oscars. So the top 10 films of 2023 with Kelly and Patrick will be on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. The Oscar preview with Matty and Jim will be on Wednesday, March 6th, 2024. And our 1998 in review with Mel and Angelo will be on Thursday, March 7th, 2024. All shows will drop at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. So that's announcement number 1. Is that pretty exciting, Matty?
I can't wait for more.
I mean, you guys are both out of town, so I don't know if you'll be as excited about this one. Maybe you guys might remember from back when we all lived in the same city. I mean, Jim and I are in the same city now. I don't know if you guys have ever attended this, but do you guys know or are aware of what we do every year the day before the Oscars, the Saturday before the Oscars. Are you guys familiar with our tradition we've done since 1998?
Is there a party that I can never make?
It's not really a party. It's a marathon. Every year, the day before the Oscars, we do an Oscar movie marathon. 5 Oscar-related films, 5 classic films related to the Oscars in some way, each one from a different year. And this year, that will be on March 9th, 2024 in Los Angeles. Although Jim and Matt, you guys are welcome to join us virtually. Those of you at home can line up with the schedule and let us know. We'll be vlogging throughout the day, these various films. But now we are going to announce for the first time ever anywhere, we're going to announce the lineup for our Oscar movie marathon taking place in Los Angeles on Saturday, March 9th, 2024. Starting at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. We are diehard, ladies and gentlemen. Starting with the film The Front Runner from 2018 from director Jason Reitman about presidential candidate Gary Hart, played in this film by Hugh Jackman, featuring one of the performances that I talked about that year, the surprising supporting turn of Molly Ephraim. At 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 a.m. Pacific will be the film Rush from 2013, 10 years ago, from director Ron Howard, featuring another performance I called out that year, German actor Daniel Bruhl, in performance that announced his presence to American audiences. At 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, we'll be doing one of the films we studied from our 1988 in review, Mystic Pizza, from director Donald Petrie, which of course introduced the world to Julia Roberts and was one of the films that Devin wanted to remake and recast from our 1988 in review. At 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific will be the film Save the Tiger from 1973, 50 years ago, from director John G. Avildsen, featuring an Oscar-winning performance by Jack Lemmon as Best Actor. Also nominated in the film was character actor Jack Gilford for Supporting Actor. And at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, will be the film The Snake Pit from 1948, 75 years ago, from director Anatoly Litvak, featuring Oscar-nominated performance by Olivia de Havilland. Was also nominated for Best Picture and Best Director. Okay, guys, so that is the lineup for this year's Oscar Movie Marathon, an eclectic group of films that we're very excited to share them all with you on March 9th. Do you guys have any thoughts? Are you a little jealous or what?
I am. There's a bunch of movies in there that I really love. I love Rush.
Matty P, any thoughts about that lineup?
Yeah, just what I want to do, watch 5 movies over Zoom.
You can watch them on your own and then talk to us over Zoom.
True, that is true.
I believe Jim's going to be a little more involved in this particular segment, and it is possibly the most popular Sound Off segment we do every year because we only do it annually. It is time for recastings. Every year we study a different year in film history, and at the end of that show, whether it be the 1947 review, whatever, we talk about the films from that year that we'd like to remake. And so every year on the second Sound Off, we recast those films that we wanted to remake with modern actors. There are 2 films that came up in the show. Born to Kill from director Robert Wise, which Jim and Devin both wanted to remake, and also T-Men from director Anthony Mann that I wanted to remake. Because they had crossover with theirs, which is the first time ever, we decided to add a third one that came up in discussion as another one that was ripe for a remake, and that's a film called The Exile from director Max Ophuls, his famous French director, dabbling his work in Hollywood here. That's where we're going to start, if it's okay with you, Jim.
Yeah.
It is a historical fiction about what King Charles II was up to while exiled in Holland and while being hunted by those officials loyal to Oliver Cromwell, who ousted Charles. I personally am not usually interested in British history, but this particular concept of a deposed king on the run is kind of a fun and compelling idea, and I feel like a lot can be drawn from it. Jim did not watch it as part of one of his 1947 films, but has since watched it for the first time. So, Jim, do you see what I'm saying? As this is a good possible remake?
Yeah, no, it's a great movie. There's a lot of action. There's adventure. I think that there's a lot of pull for a modern remake of it. Yeah, I understand why this was one of the selected movies.
All right, so let's start with the lead as Charles II. And one of the main reasons why I feel like it was due for recasting, because Charles II in the film was played by Douglas Fairbanks Jr., who doesn't hold a candle to his famous father. I felt like there was room for improvement there. Charles II, of course, was the deposed King of England, played by Fairbanks as a noble, charming Lothario and swashbuckler who's maybe enjoying his exile a little too much. Once he falls for a local innkeeper, he's forced to question whether or not he even wants to go back to England if the political winds were to change, which of course they did historically in 1660. All right, so Jim, you go first here. Who would you have as Charles II?
I mean, I'm looking for somebody with charisma, with a bit of sparkle and wit and charm, but also very hero type. I went with Chris Hemsworth.
Thor himself. He's definitely got the hero type thing down. Like, he's a big guy. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind is how intimidated is he as Charles II? Like, would Cromwell have even been able to to pose him if he was Chris Hemsworth? I might be reading into it too much. Certainly got the charm down. It's funny because he came up because Rush is a movie that we're going to screen at the Oscar Marathon. I didn't consider him because I don't respect him much as an actor quite yet.
That's fair.
Matt, any thoughts on Chris Hemsworth before we move on?
I think he can do a good job.
All right, Matty P is a Chris Hemsworth fan. I am not. So for my Charles II, I'm with an actor that I bring up, now and then on the show. We reviewed his performance in 2016's Captain Fantastic in episode 67.2. Going with the actor George Mackay, who made both the top 10 of mine and Jim's in 2019 for his work in the film 1917, directed by Sam Mendes. Charles II was 30 years old at the time of the restoration, so he's at the right age. For me, one of the best British actors in that age range. I'm not sure the swashbuckling would be as natural to him as it would be for Chris Hemsworth, maybe. In my vision of the film, I would be de-emphasizing that aspect of it, looking to focus rather on the inner conflict of his responsibility to his country versus where his heart takes him. And from that point of view, I think George Mackay would really thrive.
No, I think it's a great pick. You were like, I want a really good actor, and I was like, I want a movie star.
Fair enough. Your version might sell more tickets. Matty P, George Mackay.
Yeah, I know the movie you just called out, but I don't know who he is particularly. I'm trying to look him up.
And moving on to the next character of Katie, played in the film by Paula Creuset. I don't even know I'm pronouncing that right. She's a Dutch actress. She's a young owner of an inn and farm. She inherited the farm and is struggling to run it by herself and has gotten herself into debts, which Charles resolves to help with the business, albeit incognito. So we're looking for a mid-20s Dutch actress if we can find one. I had some trouble, but I eventually, made a compromise there. Who do you have for Katie?
Yeah, I didn't end up going with a Dutch actress. I had a little bit of trouble. Same as you finding Dutch. But I went with a British actress. I went with Mia Goth,
who I think I've only seen once in that Pearl movie just last year. Is that the right girl I'm thinking of?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised you watched Pearl.
I wish I hadn't. Don't get me wrong. It's a committed performance. Based on that one small sample size, she's really, really intense.
Yes.
I'd be curious to see if she could pull off the demure, shyer, nervous side that this character seemed to have.
I believe she can. She's a favorite actress of mine. I think she does really good work. I like the work that she does. But she's getting really typecast in these very intense roles. And I really think she can do more interesting, lighter stuff. I think that she, this would be a great opportunity for her to sort of lighten it up a little bit.
I remember thinking Pearl was like there was some acting acrobatics going on. Like, I'm feeling like it's impressive that she can do this. I'm not sure it's the right choices for these moments. I'm acknowledging, I'm believing it. I just don't know if it worked for the character.
Yeah, I've seen her a little bit. I don't know how she fit in that role or not. But I think it's a good pick.
All right, so I went slightly older and not quite Dutch. I did search for a Dutch actress, but we haven't gotten much from Holland since Carice Van Houten, who would have been perfect 15 years ago, but not quite now. And so I'm going to make this character a little older so I could use Swedish actress, Oscar winner Alicia Vikander. She's gorgeous and excellent in just about everything she does, but also unassuming enough that you can see a king fall in love with her, even if it is like a slightly younger king. I'm going to lean into the age difference in my version and make that a part of the plot. It's only a 5-year age difference in real life, so I think it could work, especially if he carries himself like a king and she carries herself like a farmer. I think that could be a really interesting dichotomy, and I like the two of them together. Jim, Alicia Vikander.
Yeah, it's a great choice. I support it.
Okay, Matty P, Alicia Vikander.
Of course, I support your pick.
I love the support I get from Matty P. I require it. Like, I would feel bad if I didn't have.
I look for opportunities not to support you.
So when he does, case in point, when he does, I feel real good about it. Maybe I'll give him an opportunity now as we move on to Countess Annabella, played in the film by Maria Montez, who has top billing in the film per her contract. She's a French actress. She was very famous in France, not so famous in America yet. The character is a gorgeous member of the French court and former liaison of Charles, if you get my drift. Charles loyalists guide her to the inn, not knowing that he's fallen for this Dutch girl. And so we're looking for a late 20s French actress here. Jim probably didn't do that.
Yeah, no, I went more along the Dominican roots, or the Hispanic roots than the French roots. So I actually went towards Zendaya.
But would she still be French? And therefore, would Zendaya have to do a French accent, which I am very skeptical about?
I wouldn't see any of these characters taking up much of much of a French.
You do have the true Hollywood version, and my version is like verisimilitude and all indie.
I'm thinking like Leonardo DiCaprio, Man in the Iron Mask version of this movie,
which is one of our films from our 1998 in review. The one time she came up in the show was Spider-Man No Way Home, and we felt she really, really struggled in that particular film. Superhero films are hard, but I've not seen her. Malcolm and Marie was close. She had some moments in Malcolm and Marie. It felt like a young actor, like doing a high school play, like a really intense high school play, Malcolm and Marie. Did you see Malcolm and Marie?
I didn't see Malcolm and Marie. I watched Euphoria. I liked a lot of the choices that she made in that. She needs direction. Yeah, it's good. Like you said, she's a young actress, and I think it's just giving her the right things to do.
Once again, not a fan of the actor yet. She's a huge star at this point, and she's going to keep getting those roles and keep getting challenged, and that's good. I think the actor I chose has proven herself. Maybe not on the American stage, although she was in a bigger film or a bigger indie this past year. And I did go with a French actress. I went with Adele Exarchopoulos, star of the French film Blue is the Warmest Color that we reviewed in episode 49.2. And of course, this past year in 2023, she was a co-star of the film Passages, directed by Ira Sachs. Blue is the Warmest Color episode is the most watched episode that we have done all time. Adele is not only beautiful, but super talented. If you've seen either of those films, I think you would agree. And I think she would have a lot of fun with this lustful, playful, elitist character. Jim, Adele Exarchopoulos.
Nope, great choice.
Matty P, do you know Blue is the Warmest Color or Passages?
Yeah, these are great people. Everyone. So
Jim, you only did those three because I've got a couple more.
Yeah, I only did those three.
The last couple are just going to be me, and the next character I have is Colonel Ingram, played in the film by Henry Daniell. Looking here for a late 40s dour British actor. The character of Ingram is a devout follower of Cromwell and later his son Richard, determined to murder Charles II, hoping that would quell any discussion of restoration. The actor I'm going with is working a lot lately. He's been working a long time, but just in the last 10 years, he's on the public scene a little more, at least the American films. I'm going with Mark Strong. We're looking for late 40s dour British actor. I mean, he's actually 60, but I think he looks pretty good for his age and is obviously quite comfortable playing complicated bad guys. I can also see him as a true believer. Think of Trump supporters. They'd go to war for him. Same is true of Cromwell, and this guy Ingram actually held a position of authority in the military. Another comp for Jim might be Eric Portman's portrayal of Hurth in the 49th Parallel. Similar kind of idea there. I've got Mark Strong here, Jim. Thoughts?
Really like Mark Strong. He has had a bit of a career bump in the past 10 years. It's a great choice.
Do you know Mark Strong, Matty P?
Yeah. he's a very strong-looking actor.
All right, one last role from The Exile, and the role is Dick Pinner. Played in the film by Robert Coote, and sort of a comic relief kind of character. He's a possible doppelganger for Charles, because everyone knows Charles is hiding in Holland, so he goes around pretending to be Charles and thinking that will get him free food and treated nicely. He's basically an actor. Like, the character is an actor who's dressed up what he thinks Charles would look like. So we're also looking for someone 30s British and essentially to be that doppelganger for George Mackay. So I actually went with an actor I actually named as the best supporting actor of the decade, this past decade, for his work in Detroit, Will Poulter. And he has enough resemblance to George Mackay, enough to convince the Dutch that he's actually Charles II when they've never seen Charles II. But he's also proven his comic abilities in the last Guardians film. Like I said, the character is really the comic relief of the film and is very successful in that role. And so I think Will would have fun and really flourish here. Jim, do you know Will Poulter?
Yes, I love Will Poulter. He is a great actor.
Matty P, anything on Will Poulter?
I think he'd pull off a comedic role for sure.
That's pretty much The Exile. We've got our new cast. I'm sure the offers are out to their agents, so we'll see if how that turns out. I think it'll be a nice ensemble in either direction. Mine is obviously better, or at least very, very, very different. But I think the Hollywood execs would prefer Jim's version. Jim, you ready to move on to the next one?
Yes, I will say that in this version of my casting, it'd be really easy to slot Luke Hemsworth and
as the doppelganger.
as the doppelganger.
Yes, that'd be very fun too.
See?
I'll give you that. If it was worth having a lesser actor like Chris Hemsworth, it's time to talk about our next film, the one that Jim and Devin both wanted to remake. They liked it that much, and so we're talking about Born to Kill, from an early film in the career of director Robert Wise, who would go on to win 2 Oscars for co-directing West Side Story and then directing by himself Sound of Music. You know, he's made a lot of great films, Robert Wise, but this is early in his career as a former editor, including on Citizen Kane. The story of Born to Kill is a little complicated. So this man is sort of like a brute. His rage is easily set off, and he winds up killing this man and woman. And then this woman who lived in the house where these dead bodies are, she goes in, she finds the bodies, decides not to say anything about it, and then she happens to run into the killer on the train on her way to leave town to San Francisco, and decides he's really hot, and decides she's not going to turn him in. More than that, she's actually going to full-on cover for him. It gets real complicated. That's as much as I want to set up now. Jim, is that enough for now? Is that enough setup?
Yeah, I think that's a good setup.
Are you already excited to watch this movie, Born to Kill, Matty?
I can't wait.
So starting with the first character here of Sam Wilde, played in the film by Lawrence Tierney. One of the primary reasons for the remake, as far as I'm concerned, is how much of a distraction Tierney's terrible performance is. Like, he is very, very bad, and is the main reason I hated this movie. On the page, they appropriately named Sam Wilde as a brute and a bully, prone to kill anyone that wrongs him, no matter how slight. His apparent good looks, fearlessness, intensity, and strength makes him appealing to women, and he knows it. His rage overcomes his rationale time and time again in an out-of-control way. So we're looking for 30s here, strong and handsome. Jim, you're first. Who do you got for Sam Wilde?
So I did go a little older here because I think, and I think we talked about this with the other casting too, is that Hollywood doesn't really make big men right now, big men who are like bad guys and hot. Yeah, we have character actors like Dave Bautista. We have kind of these ugly, sexy guys, Adam Driver, who could be bad. We have a really narrow pool.
Okay.
And so
Point taken on the narrow pool.
So I went with Tom Hardy, who I think is the actor that he's in the center of all of those things.
Fans of the show, if you watch a lot, he doesn't come up that much, but when he does come up, I have really disliked Tom Hardy and consistently do not enjoy him as an actor. Tom Hardy, for better or worse, is consistently challenging himself, but doing it poorly, I think. He's a classic overactor to me. Like, if you look at things like The Revenant, which is his, I think, one and only Oscar nomination to date, and even the thing where he played the brothers, the Legend, is that the name of it? He just really overdoes it time and time again. I haven't seen much from him that I've liked. So this is another actor that I have a personal predilection against. I can see that from the physical attributes. I can see from the quick to rage attributes. I can see where your mind's at. I just have, basically, I have the same idea, just what I think is a better actor. You've actually criticized the actor I'm about to mention on the show in the past, which is my segment. There's a movie that we reviewed on the show that Jim hated because the main character was so unlikable. And he was so unlikable because he was a brooding brute with a temper issue, only slightly more evolved than the character in Born to Kill. And the actor played something similar to this brute, only a little more nuanced, in 2019's film The Mustang, which is an indie. And I'm referring to Matthias Schoenaerts, that Jim hated a lot in the film Rust and Bone that we reviewed in episode 44.2. I think he's got the chops. I think it's a great performance in Rust and Bone, but that's beside the point. He's got the looks, he's got the build, the danger element, and the two performances that I mentioned, Mustang and Rust and Bone, I think prove the acting ability. I think it's a huge upgrade to Lawrence Tierney with an eye towards digging underneath Sam's clear struggles with mental health and the various potential triggers to his snap. I turn it over to Jim. I expected this to be controversial from you. Matthias Schoenaerts.
I didn't hate him as an actor. I hated the character. I hate the way.
Do you like the character of Sam Wilde in Born to Kill?
No, but it's the character of Sam Wilde in Born to Kill is almost a caricature.
Well, we want to do better than that.
I think in Rust and Bone they really wanted to make him real and they were trying to give him this level of grittiness and realism. And I think I had a problem with the writing of the character more than the playing of the character.
So tell me about Matthias Schoenaerts as an actor.
I agree. He does have the menace. He does have the looks. I think it still falls into the problem of like the look of the men is lean and cut and chiseled. And I still think he falls and it's been a few years since I've seen Rust and Bone, but I still think he falls kind of into that category. And part of the reason I was looking at people like, Tom Hardy is he doesn't feel chiseled and cut. He feels big.
Helen needs to basically, fall for him on essentially just looks because he wasn't personality.
And I think he does. I mean, we look at Lawrence Tierney. I don't know if Lawrence Tierney was
Not from my point of view, but
either, but it was a different time period. So maybe he was the dishy guy that everybody wanted.
Everyone in the film seemed to think so, even the other dudes. Matty P, do you know either Tom Hardy or Matthias Skanardis?
I know Tom Hardy, and since I can't really participate in this section, I can tell you that ChatGPT agrees with Jim that Tom Hardy would play a young Lawrence Tierney.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Where's my union contract that has no AI as a part of this? So now let's move on to Helen Brent, played in the film by the great Claire Trevor, Oscar-winning actress. The character of Helen is a recently divorced woman who is somehow drawn to the darker side of Sam. I underline the word somehow, even though she is aware of his murderous tendencies. It connects with the darker side of herself that she has buried, especially after successfully climbing up the social and financial ladder the way that Sam wants to. So one suspects she's done a shady thing or two to get where she has. Further suspects a willingness to do more if pushed. So we're looking for a 30s female with a darkness about her. Jim, who do you have for Helen Brent?
This woman, the line that Lawrence Tierney has in the movie is that you and I are the same. I think that you have to have that element of badness inside. Specifically looking at actresses I thought could really pull that off. The actress that I went with was Riley Keough. I thought her performance in Zola really what stuck with me and made me think of her in this role.
And that's a performance that we talked about in the Oscar preview of 2021. You named her as Best Supporting Actress, and I was like, yeah, that, she was a top 5 supporting actress for me from that year, if I recall. Mind-numbing, that performance in Zola. In a movie, if you recall, I did not like the film, but she was out of this world, like major, method acting. Well, I don't know what she was doing, but she was so deep into that role. Really top-notch actor, Riley Keough. She's really excellent. I think she's a little younger than I had in mind. You're pairing her with Tom Hardy. There's an age difference there that I don't love, but she's going to also be prepared. She's going to act circles around Tom Hardy.
ChatGPT suggests Margot Robbie.
Wow, I do not like ChatGPT. I am going with the actress I named as Best Supporting Actress of 2019, in which she does play the villain in the film Dr. Sleep, referring to Rebecca Ferguson. Plus performances in less good films like The Girl on the Train, Mission Impossible, and Reminiscence all back up this mysterious dark side that she can convey, all while being a woman that could entice our bully character just enough to drive him a little mad. I mean, she's got the looks. I think she's got the talent. I think she's got a wide range and has that dark side. I'm a huge fan of her work, and I think she fits in really nicely with this. And, of course, Matthias Skanardis as well, that combo.
Rebecca Ferguson is a great actress. I love her work.
So, Matty P, do you have a preference?
Rebecca Ferguson.
All right. I won that round, Jim.
Yeah.
Even beating ChatGPT. Our next character is Albert Arnett, played in the film by Austrian character actor Walter Slezak. But his nationality doesn't affect the character at all. In the film, he's American. He's a private detective. He put on a murder case that leads directly to Sam, but he himself is not above to a bribe to bury the evidence he's uncovered. He's in his 50s with an unkempt quality. I think there's an obvious choice here that comes to mind. If you've seen the film, just based on the physicality, I avoided it, thinking that either Jim would go there or because it was almost too obvious. Let's see if Jim goes with the obvious choice here. Jim, who do you have? Albert Arnett.
I went with Wendell Pierce, who I thought is an actor that I really love. I think he's a great actor. I think he comes across as a very smart actor. Like, his characters are very sharp. I also think that just like everybody else in this movie, he's a morally gray, like he plays great morally gray characters. You would totally buy the twists and turns that his character takes. I think that he'd do a wonderful job.
I'm not going to say it's better than mine, but it's equal to. Like, this is the first one I'd be like, yeah, I'm totally on board with that, and I think he'd be great. I think he'd do a lot of things that he hasn't been given the chance to. I think he was just on Broadway this past year. You would know better than me with Broadway. Was he doing on Broadway? It wasn't Death of a Salesman.
He was, yes, it was Death of a Salesman. He was on Broadway.
The guy who would have been perfect for the role, if he were still around, is Philip Seymour Hoffman. Like, that would have been the home run if he were alive. So I went with another Oscar-winning actor that has limited some of his options in the last few years because of some of the weight that he's puts on. But I do think that suits this role well, as do I think this role suits him well. I still think Russell Crowe is one of the better actors out there, and I think he would bring a lot to this interesting, entertaining, intelligent, and morally ambiguous character. I think he might bring a little Orson Welles and touch of evil quality. Well, how do you feel about Russell Crowe?
Yeah, he's great.
Matty P, Russell Crowe or Wendell Pierce?
Russell Crowe's not my favorite guy, but I was thinking more J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons also would be a very, very good choice, and you might have too much fun with it. J.K. Simmons. This is right in his sweet spot. That too would be a good choice. Some backups in case Russell turns me down. All right. So now the moment of truth. I think we got two more. Georgia, played in the film by the gorgeous Audrey Long, Helen's foster sister. Helen's ability to sidle up to her so-called sister has kept her in the pink as long as she has. Sam marries the oblivious Georgia when he realizes she's the one with the money, with the idea that he can take the money from her but still spend time with Helen on the side. So we're looking for someone early 30s, got a naive-ish quality to let all these people sort of run scams on her, kind. Jim, who do you have for Georgia?
So I went just a little bit younger than 30. I went with and again, I think the innocence and sort of the open-heartedness is really what we're looking for. I went with Sophia Lillis.
You found an actor that I don't know off the top of my head. Is it television actors? I don't watch television.
No, she was in the Dungeons and Dragons movie this past year.
The redhead?
Yeah, and she was in It.
I don't watch horror movies, so I don't know, but certainly redheads. I think I wrote my notes about Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I'm curious about this actor. I haven't seen much from the yet. Small sample size. Not a lot to showcase in this role, but I was impressed with what I saw. I sort of had the feeling like jury is still out. I certainly see the look, and pairing her with Riley Keough, I can get behind all of those things. That sounds good. Maddie, do you know her at all?
Looks like she was in Asteroid City as well, which I know was probably your favorite movie of last year, Jonathan.
Can't reveal that now because we have our Oscar preview coming up on March the 6th. All right, so my choice for Georgia is an actress we reviewed quite a bit in the show, and I am going sort of early 30s here. And again, thinking like a youngerish sister to Rebecca Ferguson, even though they're not blood related. There's an actress we reviewed way back as episode 5, an Insurgent, episode 25.1 with Allegiant, episode, I don't remember the number of this episode, 47.2 with Spectacular Now, or I think 47.2, and 58.1 with the movie that Jim and I saw together, Adrift. Shailene Woodley is the actress.
Yes.
She's slightly younger than Rebecca Ferguson, which is what I'm looking for, but not that much, and they aren't real sisters anyway, so it's fine. But I like the slight age difference because, again, it perhaps better explains Helen's influence over Georgia. I can see Woodley really nailing the sweetness and naivete of the character, looking up to the big sister, and then falling for a man's man like Skinardis. I think she'd fit in great here with this ensemble, creating a really interesting dynamic.
I think Shailene Woodley is a great choice.
Matty P, do you know Shailene Woodley, the Descendants and such?
Yeah. I don't know how she would work in this role, but based on what you're saying, like young, kind of like 30s, different types of what about like Emma Stone?
Emma Stone, I mean, it's a smaller role. I mean, I guess that'd be true of Shailene Woodley as well. But I think Shailene Woodley is more apt to taking smaller roles right now. Emma Stone might be too lead. But Emma Stone also can do just about anything. All right, guys, so to move on to the final character from Born to Kill. The character's name is Marty, played in the film by the legendary character actor Elijah Cook Jr. And I sort of see Marty as the Lenny to Sam's George, if George were also very, very mean. Marty's always cleaning up Sam's messes and trying to be a voice of reason to his animalistic friend in an extremely and almost lovingly loyal way. One gets the sense Sam rescued Marty from something somewhere along the way, and no matter what Sam does, no matter how bad it is, Marty will follow and help. So we're looking for someone who's moderately intelligent, in his 40s, but also a follower. So Jim, who do you have?
Yeah, I think for Marty, there's a real one-to-one analog of actors working today for Elijah Cook Jr. It came down to two. One was really leaning into that to go for that. One wasn't, but in the end, I took it, and that is I went with Walton Goggins.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, okay. A little older than I had in mind, but a good-ish actor. Like, it's funny because I do think he, like, the main role that I know him from is I didn't see that Western he was in. I hear good things, but I do think he overplayed that role in The Hateful Eight. I feel like that's definitely more on Tarantino than anybody. How do you feel about Walton Goggins, Matty?
Just passing knowledge of him from TV from a while ago. I liked him a lot, but not anything recently that I can recall.
So we'll see if they have issues with this prick, because I'm returning to the actor that I named as the best supporting actor of the year in 2014. Devin, Alex, and Patrick all named him as best actor of the year in 2020. But it's that 2014 performance in Nightcrawler that is probably the best comp for this. And so now I'm obviously referring to Riz Ahmed. I can see him really playing the misguided loyalty, the inner conflict sometimes when he's faced with having to break the law, even murder, all because of his friend's inability to control himself. There's a codependent relationship there, and Marty is an enabler, one that hopes, like some abused spouses or those connected with addiction, that they will eventually be able to course correct or even save their friend or partner. Riz Ahmed would understand that, and I think play that beautifully.
So Riz Ahmed was my number 2 selection.
So we could have had it. We could have had this moment where we had the first time ever an overlap in these 3 castings, but no. And it's the last one that you're doing too. So we had it and you swept it away.
Sorry.
It sounds like he agrees. Matty P, anything on Riz Ahmed?
No.
Matty P, I'm going to move on to the final film. You excited?
Mm-hmm.
Matty P, I think you'd actually like this film. It's called T-Men from 1947, and it's a movie about the U.S. Treasury Department focused on a real-life case known as the Shanghai Paper Case. It's actually a quite fascinating case about a counterfeiting ring whose imported paper makes their bills more believable. The problem with the film is the director, Anthony Mann, made the film like those lame, condescending one-reelers that they show in schools, complete with the voice of God narration. But the story itself was fascinating with some crazy real-life twists, and so it seemed definitely in need of a remake. There was one sort of half-hearted attempt at a remake in 1969 called The File of the Golden Goose, but it went way too far afield of the original story. There's lots of small characters in this labyrinthine case, so I'll just focus on the 2 agents and one of the bad guys. And so starting here with Detective O'Brien, played in the film by Dennis O'Keefe, who is the ranking undercover agent on the case. He's about late 20s, a by-the-book cop meant to pose as a tough guy mobster. His undercover name in the case is Harrigan. And so the actor that I'm thinking of is an actor we've reviewed on 5 different times on the show. It's the second most of all time. We've never named him as the best actor, supporting actor of any given year, but he's been shortlisted as one of the best of the year for various performances, like films like Whiplash and 2 films we reviewed in the show, Rabbit Hole and The Spectacular Now. He successfully played Italian Americans in films like Bleed for This and TV shows like The Offer, so would blend in with the undercover mob situation. By now, you've likely figured out that I'm referring to Miles Teller. His career hasn't quite exploded like those early performances suggested it might have. Some reports of on-set attitude, but everyone seems to agree that the work is consistently excellent. He fits the role. I think he can do it, and I think he could use a few more good guy roles, good guys with edge like this one. I think he'd also add a lot more depth than Dennis O'Keefe did, like he does to all his characters. So I've got Miles Teller.
I like Miles Teller. He was great in Top Gun Maverick.
So the other undercover officer, the character name is Tony Gennaro, played in the film by Alfred Ryder. And he's the junior undercover agent who actually spoke Italian, and his undercover name was Tony Galvani. So on both the top 10 films of 2021 that Matty Polis was on and the Oscar preview of 2021 that Jim was on, I was critical of Steven Spielberg's film West Side Story. But heck, I'm also critical of the 1961 original, so what do I know? But one thing I liked about Spielberg's version is the raw, intense, surprising performance of Mike Feist as Riff, the Mercutio stand-in. This character needs to be able to play Italian-American, which we know that Feist can do based on West Side Story, and the character also needs to seem a little green. The character is mostly capable, but makes a crucial mistake in the undercover operation. I know we haven't seen a lot from Feist, but he is also, along with Zendaya, coming out next year, the film Challengers by Luca Guadagnino, and so we'll see more from him then. You guys have both seen West Side Story. Do you guys remember him as Riff?
That's the only thing that I know him from. I think he did a fine job. Sure.
I mean, we're looking for someone young and greenish here, you know what I mean? So that I like that I've only seen him in one thing. It's the perfect thing for that. Matty P, anything on Mike Feist?
Nothing more to add on that.
Moving right along to one of the bad guys from the film, he's known in the film as the Schemer. That's his only real name, played in the film by Wallace Ford. Finding the Schemer and fooling him is what got the undercover agents in with the counterfeit ring. As described in the film, he is 50s, heavyset. His real name is never revealed. My old writing and producing partner, whom both these guys know, Joe Michalczyk, he used to ask me what actor I most wanted to work with. And he was almost disappointed when I would always answer, and this is like in the 90s, I would always answer Jeff Daniels. And that was before The Newsroom, The Martian, To Kill a Mockingbird, and all these other great performances he's given since then. But I knew back then the skill, intelligence, and detail he brought to each role, and he continues to do so. He's about the right age for this character, has gained a little weight, but not too much, and I think he would have a blast playing this weasel character. Daniel's acerbic abilities are on display in most of his performances, and this character needs to talk himself out of many a sticky situation. So I think the Schemer seemed perfect for Jeff.
Yeah, love Jeff Daniels.
Matty P, Jeff Daniels.
Yeah, he can play almost anything, so he did great.
Got that one right, guys. And that is an end to the recasting segment. You guys happy to move on?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So, Jim, do you know what's next?
Are we doing our special segment?
They're all special to me, like little children. So yes, it is time for our top 5 all in the family films segment based on a review of Ben is Back last week. And in that film, the director was Peter Hedges, and in the cast was his Oscar-nominated son, Lucas. And that's sort of what inspired this top 5. There's been a number of examples. A director directs his family member or co-stars with a family member, and we're going to reveal some of what we think is the best. Now, guys, just so we're all clear here, the rules. No one family can repeat on the top 5. Husbands and wives can count if they were married at the time that the film was made. And we're only talking about directors and actors, not 2 brothers who co-direct. So the Wachowski siblings would not qualify, and not one family member who is a composer or an art director or something like that. At least one of them needs to be in front of the camera, if not both. And so those are rules I sent to you guys a while ago.
I thought you said it was director and an actor.
A director, an actor, or 2 actors. But it looks like Jim's going to get in on this one. And so for number 5, I'll let Jim go first. And what do you got, Jim?
So my number 5, I have Much Ado About Nothing. It's Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson. It was that period in the 90s where he was bringing Shakespeare kind of to the masses. With the exception of one major person, it was a great all-around cast. It was fun, accessible, and just a beautiful movie.
I tend not to enjoy the Kenneth Branagh films because I do feel like they get a little onanastic. That is the least of them. And from that point of view, meaning that is my favorite of the Kenneth Branagh, certainly Kenneth Branagh Shakespeare films. Much Ado wise, there's a film that we reviewed on the show, episode 52.2, the black and white Much Ado About Nothing with Joss Whedon did at his house, which is a lot of fun. Of course, Anyone But You came out this year, which is a modern updating of that with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. It's not going to make my top 5. It's not a bad film. It is certainly, if you're going to pick a Branagh Thompson film, that's the one to pick. It's not my favorite Shakespeare film. It's not my favorite Much Ado. It might be among my favorite Branagh Thompson films, if that makes sense. Yep. Do you know the film, Matty P?
It's been a long time. I don't know, but so I can't really comment on it. Okay,
so my number 5 is probably the film that a lot of classic fans will immediately think of when they hear about this category, because the film is always involved in the trivia question: what director directed both his father and his daughter to Oscar-winning performances? And Jim, the answer is...
I don't know.
So the answer is John Huston, who would direct his daughter to an Oscar-winning performance in Prizzi's Honor in 1985. But I'm going to focus on the one where he directed his father to an Oscar-winning performance in 1948. So my number 5 is The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which also won Huston his only Best Director Oscar. The film also appeared in our top 5 unlikable protagonists episode back in episode 37.4. The film is famously a powerful and compelling morality tale about the power of greed, which features not only Walter Huston's inventive and frenetic Oscar-winning performance, but also daring dark work from Humphrey Bogart. A smart script, great acting with the exception of Tim Holt, and some equally great, gritty filmmaking.
It's a solid pick. It's a really good movie.
So that moves us on casually and quickly to number 4. Jim, what do you got for your number 4 all in the family film?
All right, so this is the movie that I had to look up to see if they counted, and they do. And it is Key Largo with Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. And it is one of my favorite movies. It is a classic noir picture. It is just all around great. When you came up with this challenge, that was the first movie that I thought of.
Also directed by...
Who was directed by?
John Huston.
He had a good year.
The film won an Oscar for Claire Trevor, who was in Born to Kill.
Yes, I was going to bring that up.
Okay. In the Huston oeuvre, I think Key Largo is a miss. Claire Trevor is very good. A winning performance for her. Film is a little theatrical. It's a little stagey. Less interesting to me as far as noirs go. It's not a bad film. I do think there's a lot better John Huston films. I think there's a lot better Humphrey Bogart films. I think To Have and Have Not is better than both of those films. To your point, they were not married at the time.
Yes, and in fact, it led me down a little bit of a rabbit hole.
Okay.
Of what films in the category I could pick from.
I'm moving now to a father and daughter that share the screen. And it last came up on a top 5 that we did where I did top 5 child performances of all time back in episode 53.4. And a performance that still holds the record for the youngest person to win an Academy Award. referring, of course, to Tatum O'Neal acting alongside her recently departed father, Ryan, in Paper Moon, director Peter Bogdanovich in 1973. And this is a top 100 film for me, sliding in at number 87. It's not just about the charm in their on-screen bond, one that did not carry over in real life, by the way, but it's the greatness of the double character journey in the script, as both in their own way realize their desired independence might be overrated. Addie, as played by Tatum O'Neal, shows such immaturity in her efforts to stream streetwise and mature, and comes to be frustrated and confused by her eventual need for attention and affection from Ryan's sleazy grifter character. The socioeconomic situation at the time was hard on everybody, but they discovered that it's a little easy to endure with a partner or a friend. It's a lovely film, beautifully directed by Bogdanovich. I've got Paper Moon. Matt, do you remember that one?
I do know of it, but I don't think I've seen it.
It looks like number 3 is next up. What is your number 3 film in this top all in the family category?
My number 3 film is a film by Peter Bogdanovich. Father-daughter combination, and Tatum O'Neal ended up winning an Oscar for it. Paper Moon.
Your first a Pete, now a repeat. Is there an echo in here?
It's a wonderful film. One of the first movies I thought of when he threw this category out. Everything that you said was great.
And we know Matt doesn't think he's seen that, so we can move right along. In my number 3, and this is a film that came up once before on the top 5 in episode 57.4. And as is the most, and it's a film that is the most recent addition to my top 100, meaning it's the one that I most recently added, not the one that's most recently made. It's actually 1963, I think. But it's now into my top 100 at number 66. This is a husband and wife team that are considered to be the first couple of American independent cinema. So John Cassavetes directed his wife, Jenna Rollins, in almost all of his films. But my number 1 film, or my top 5 John Cassavetes films on episode 57.4, was the little-remembered film A Child is Waiting from 1963. Roland plays the frustrated mother of a child with severe learning disabilities and mental handicaps. She has to ship him off to a special school and then has conflict about visiting. Part of her doesn't want to deal with the burden of having a quote-unquote defective child. A lot of the film takes place at the actual school, which features a lot of real-life handicapped and disabled children, which adds a powerful and heart-wrenching verisimilitude to the piece. I grant you that Cassavetes himself didn't like this film. It wasn't dark enough for his taste, and it was a work-for-hire job, so Hollywood was more involved. But combining Cassavetes' natural directing ability with Hollywood's sense of audience appeal and general storytelling acumen, the film winds up being an emotional powerhouse. It's an important, still relevant, fascinating, and extremely effective work that had me thinking and sobbing throughout. Throw in some of Judy Garland's best acting work, and you have what I think is a near masterpiece, no matter what the director says. The Child is Waiting. Matt, you might not even heard of this one.
I haven't seen it.
Jim, Child is Waiting.
I haven't seen the film. I will say that I think that any list, any top 5 all in the family list needs to have Jenna Rollins and John Cassavetes represented in it. So
we just disagree about which the best Rollins Cassavetes combination is. Number 2 of our top 5 all in the family films, Jim.
I feel like you should have gone first in all of these because I feel like I'm a step behind you. But my number 2 is Woman Under the Influence, the Jenna Rollins, John Cassavetes film. It's such raw, powerful acting. It is another one of the films that stuck out as this has to go on the list. I'm curious to know what your opinion is on it.
Yeah, and if it weren't for Child is Waiting, this would have been the film. And Jenna Rollins' performance in this film is top 10 all time.
Yeah, I mean, 100%.
Not only that, I teach this film now. It's a film that I make the students watch for a number of reasons. And it's a different way of going about making movies. So that's one of the reasons I teach it. Harrowing, extraordinary piece of work. To me, it was about one of the best films that have this couple or family dynamic. And Child of Waiting, to me, is a better film, just tighter. And as much as I love Woman in the Influence and the acting in Woman in the Influence, it does, it has some minor, drawbacks. It made my top 5 Cassavetes. It gets a little rambling. There's something about that style of filmmaking that can be grating after a while. And part of its joy is its imperfections, but they are indeed imperfections. Maddie, do you know Woman Under the Influence?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. You've covered it completely, but I agree. It's a great movie, great performance, and it belongs on this list.
All right, so now it's time for my number 2, and it'll be another film that I teach. Moving on from one film I teach to another film I teach for my number 2, and it's another husband-wife team here, and Another time we're talking about Humphrey Bogart here. For the third time on this list, Humphrey Bogart makes it. You'd assume I would be talking about something he did with Lauren Bacall. But actually, I'm referring to Nicholas Ray casting his wife, the stunning Gloria Graham, opposite Bogart in the 1951 drama/thriller In a Lonely Place, which is number 62 on my all-time top 100. Now, working together on this film created huge rifts in their marriage, and it wasn't long after when Graham would have an affair with Nicholas Ray's son and then leave him. But they were married at the time they made this film. Bogart plays Dixon Steele, a Hollywood screenwriter and war veteran who continues to struggle with what we now know as PTSD, which for Steele manifests itself in a sudden and explosive temper. Graham's character of Laurel loves him deeply, but his occasional meltdowns scare her, even though she is rarely the object of his rage. She knows he's in pain, but doesn't know how to help him because, quite frankly, the world at the time didn't necessarily have the tools to deal with him. And so the film is ultimately a character-driven piece with a great deal of depth, wonderful acting, what I say is Bogart's finest performance. Graham as well, for that matter. Their scene work is excellent. The visuals are extremely cinematic, even though it mostly takes place in rooms. And the dialogue is very sharp, witty, often sexy, but also very real for early 50s America. I think it's a truly wonderful film. Jim, In a Lonely Place.
I have not seen it. So, but your description of it, I'm putting it on my list.
Matt, do you know In a Lonely Place by chance?
Haven't seen it.
So we've got number ones here coming up. And so it's a possibility you've got the same number one. Jim, what have you got for your number one film of this All in the Family list?
I mean, there was only ever one number one film for me on this list. And I actually figured, I kind of figured that we would match it because we both have expressed our deep love and affection for this movie.
So far, you're on target with what I assume you're going to say.
And that is Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, that is also what I have.
I 100% went into this thinking we were going to match on our number one. A masterwork of direction, a masterwork cast, a masterwork play by Albee. It is all of these elements come together in such a beautiful and horrifying and intense way.
But yeah, this is a film that's number 27 on my top 100 of all time, which is really high, and we all named it as the best film of 1966. All of us on the panel back then, when we studied 1966, we named her as best actress. We named Richard Burton as best actor, Mike Nichols as best director, and it's also another film that I teach. It's actually every second week of my semesters. Yeah, Maddie, you probably know a little bit about Virginia Woolf.
No, I have not seen it. Sorry.
Right, so Maddie, you didn't see a lot of what we had. You got a lot of watching to do. Based on what you have seen, what did we miss?
Oh, well, you definitely missed Zoolander, and you missed Royal Tenenbaums, which I know is top 10 of all time.
Royal Tenenbaums was one of the considerations, and I didn't think that, Jonathan, that you would accept it because I thought
smaller roles for the Wilson brothers.
I mean, it's an ensemble cast, but and they are definitely supporting actors in that movie. I also kind of looked at it as, are these the reasons that the movie is being made, or Luke and Owen Wilson are key to Wes Anderson and his relationship with them? But that's not as important as Gene Hackman or Angelica Houston or even Ben Stiller.
Back to another Houston. Royal Tenenbaums made my top 10 of 2001. It is probably my second favorite Wes Anderson film. It wouldn't have cracked this top 5 based on these films, but I think it's a good film.
We are missing the other obvious one for me.
The other obvious,
Smith.
Joel Coen. Well, I was saying Joel Coen and Frances McDormand are the ones that I thought people were going to be upset. Like Fargo is I think the biggest missing one.
Oh yeah.
Were they married at that point?
Oh yeah, they got married in the 80s.
Oh, then yes. I'm not sure if it would be on the list, but the one that I immediately went to was On Golden Pond with Henry and Jane Fonda.
I had to do a top 5 senior citizen films show, a couple years ago, almost episode 63.4, I want to think. So I rewatched it just in case it would make that, and it didn't even make that list because it's not a bad film, but it doesn't really escape the theatricality of the play.
Yeah.
It has some really good acting. But Jane Fonda's not one of those good actors. She struggles in my mind. It's an okay film, like a 6 on a scale 1 to 10 kind of thing.
You forgot about the acting powerhouse of Jaden Smith.
Oh, and Will Smith. Is that Oblivion?
Was that
After Earth is the name.
After Earth.
Pursuit of Happiness is another one.
Oh, that's right. Pursuit of
After
Happiness was the better movie of those two movies.
Yeah. After Earth won Jaden Smith a Razzie Award.
I actually had a really good time with this, especially the All in the Family. Hey, we never did acknowledge. First of all, who came up with the name All in the Family?
He did. That's why he wants to acknowledge it.
Obviously.
I was not sure what to call this because of the recent passing of Norman Lear. Jim wanted to do a little tip of the cap by calling this the top 5 All in the Family films. So you're right, and you did tell me to do that when you mentioned the name of it. So thank you. This is a perfect time to remind me in the closing thoughts. So well done on that, and I apologize for forgetting earlier. Just trying to get through the show. All right, guys. So this is our final regular season episode of the year. We've got our finales starting on March 5th with the top 10 films of 2023 with Patrick and Kelly, and then on March 6th, 2024, we have our Oscar preview coming up. And then the big show, Thursday, March 7th, 2024, the 1998 in review. In the meantime, let's say goodbye to the audience, guys.
Goodbye, audience.
Later.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I can now declare this season of the No Name Cinema Society is adjourned.